Okay, so I'm going to start. So if you could mute yourselves, that would be great. And as I said, I will be recording this session. So I'm going to share my story around depression with you today. It should take between sort of 30 and 40 minutes. So there will be time for some questions and some comments at the end if you want to ask anything. There are no slides, it's just me talking. I think the purpose of slides is to highlight important things. However, this isn't about me, this is about you. So I don't want to determine what I think is important. What I would say to you is that if there's anything that resonates with you, anything that you think, oh, actually, yes, I think I could do that, write it down, okay? Because the first thing we need to do is to recognize that maybe there is an issue. And once you've recognized that, then you can do something about it. So yes, so if you want to just take some notes for yourself, please feel free to do so. So what am I going to share? I'm going to share my story with you. I'm going to share the signs that I missed. I'm also going to share sort of what helped me overcome depression. And I also want to share that there is light at the end of the tunnel, okay? I am probably the happiest, the motivated, the most confident I have ever been. So actually depression doesn't need to define you. So that's sort of the message that I would love you all to take away at the end. But why am I sharing this right now? Over the past couple of months, I have noticed that many people, not just my clients, but my network, people who I know, are turning to me and saying that they are exhausted, that they're tired, that they are just in overwhelm and they're knackered. And actually, they can just feel themselves moving along into burnout. And what tends to happen is, you know, if you get to burnout, unless you do something about it, the next step does tend to be depression. I have a theory as to why we're all feeling a little bit like this. It's my theory, but, you know, I think it might resonate with some of you. Before COVID, we used to live our lives at 100 miles an hour, yeah? But we were used to it. We've always lived our lives like that. What COVID did, it made us stop. It made us stop. It slowed our lives down completely, and it gave us the space and the freedom to just do what we needed to do. We didn't need to please other people by going to visit relatives because you weren't allowed to. You didn't have to go out with a friend who you didn't want to go out with because you were tired, because you weren't allowed to. We were literally made to stop, and we did. However, I think everybody turned around and said, oh, I'm never going back to the way it was before COVID. No, 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 no. Never going back to that. But actually, what have we done? We've gone straight back to it. But we've gone from here to here. And that's exhausting. It's not like this. It was literally there to there. We've gone back to 100 miles an hour again. We also lived our life in survival mode. We had no idea what was going on. You know, how long was this going to last for? What would life look like after COVID? We then had, you know, the media telling us stuff. We had the worry of, oh my God, if I catch COVID, am I going to die? What about my relatives? This was complete survival mode. And then we've gone from COVID to the war in Ukraine. And then from there, we've gone to the cost of living crisis. It's just one thing after another. So there is no, you know, it's not a surprise to me that people are just exhausted, because we're literally in survival mode, and living in survival mode is exhausting. And I haven't even touched upon the personal things, life. We all have things going on in our life that impacts us, okay? So there is no wonder, you know, that so many people are struggling, but people don't know why. So back in 2014, when I was diagnosed with depression, I don't remember a major global event, but I was still diagnosed with depression. So actually, it's not just global events, it's just life as a whole. But my dance with depression didn't start in 2014. I thought that to be diagnosed with depression, you had to have a life-altering event, like a death, a divorce, an unfaithful partner, redundancy, something major. I now know different. And for some people, their depression is basically brought on by lots and lots of little things that happen to them. I talk a lot about the metaphorical bin and the fact that we fill it with rubbish. We fill it with stuff that we don't want to deal with. Like something comes at you, go, oh, I'll park that. Oh God, I'll deal with that later. Or I can't face that now. And all of these things that we keep putting into the bin, they're not very nice things, because if they were, we would deal with them. So we just keep putting more and more and more stuff into this bin. But the problem is that this bin gets fuller and fuller and fuller. And at some stage, it's going to overflow. And this is what happens to me. Because when my bin overflowed, that was when I was diagnosed with depression. There are studies out there that basically say that depression is linked to a chemical imbalance. I don't subscribe to this theory because if I had a chemical imbalance, how am I okay today? Because I've stopped taking antidepressants. And there's lots of people like me. There are lots of people who were once depressed, but now they are no longer. So what's this chemical imbalance? Don't get me wrong, I am not somebody that doesn't support antidepressants. I use antidepressants. I actually suggest to some of my clients that maybe they should think about going on to antidepressants. But it's not the magic pill that we are led to believe it is. Okay. There's been a recent study in Psychology Today that questions this theory, and they are very much on the same line that I am, that it is life that brings on depression. We are human beings, okay, and we are not being made to deal with the pace of life as it is today, the pressure of life as it is today, and the information overload that we are exposed to today. It's just too much. It really is. And actually, it was too much for me. So I've had headaches from a very young age, but in my 20s and 30s, these headaches were getting worse. And I could feel the tension in my shoulders, and then it would go up to a blinding headache. I would tell anyone who would listen that all of my stress sat in my shoulders. And it got so bad that I was actually on prescription strength ibuprofen for my headaches. And I was seeing a sports massage therapist every week to basically remove the knots in my shoulders that were caused by stress. And I thought this was normal. And nobody asked me, why do you think you're stressed? Nobody asked me. They just dealt with the symptoms. Your body tells you when it needs help, but we ignore it and we put it down to physical rather than mental. If you have headaches, if your stress sits in your shoulders and there's no physical reason as to why you're feeling this way, ask yourself why. What are you stressed about? Because if you don't know what you're stressed about, then you can't deal with it. So all you're dealing with is the symptoms, which is what I dealt with. But, you know, at the time I was single. I didn't have any children. I loved my job. So what was I stressed about? I don't know, but nobody asked me that questions. I also suffer from migraines that will put me in bed for 2 days. And I go to bed, I spend 2 days in bed, I would feel better and I'd carry on again. And I used to say to people, this is my body's way of slowing me down. I know when I'm knackered because I have a migraine. So I go to bed for 2 days and then I feel better. Seriously? This was normal for me, but it's a red flag, but I didn't see it at that. And I actually lived my life like this for 15 years, where I popped pills, I would get a migraine, I'd go to bed for 2 days, I would feel better, and I'd just go on again. 15 years I did this for. So fast forward 10 years, it was actually 2009, and I remember this. By now I was married and I had Mia. She was 3 years old and I was pregnant with Sean, hence I know the date. At this time I was working for Sony as the European marketing manager. And so there's lots of traveling. There was a toddler, I was 7 months pregnant, a husband who also traveled, and we just sold our house. But we hadn't got anywhere, another house to move into. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I was at home this day and I picked up a book that I had been reading. And I read the page and I'm like, I have no idea what I've just read. So I read it again and I'm like, oh, still no idea. It's like, Yvonne, concentrate. So I sat there and I read this page and it was like reading another language. I honestly couldn't understand a word that was on the page. So I put the book down and I picked up one of Mia's 3-year-old books. Yeah, I should be able to read that. Again, I just didn't understand these words. It was like a foreign language. So I started to panic and I called Mark and he was working down the road at the time. He said, well, call the doctor and I'll take you to the doctor. So I did. I'm sat in the waiting room, the magazines, you know, they're not difficult to read, are they? I couldn't read it. So I went into the doctor and I told him everything and he looked at me and he went, oh, you've got postnatal depression. And I looked at my 7th month bump and went, how can I have postnatal depression when I'm pregnant? And he went, oh, no, not from this baby, but from your first. I'm like, she's 3 years old. So I basically put this down to absolute rubbish and the doctor didn't know what he was talking about. However, I've done some research recently and 5% of women do struggle with postnatal depression up to 3 years after the birth. So was it postnatal depression? I have no idea. I was busy. You know, 4 months after we had Mia, we moved into a house that we'd renovated from a 2-bedroom bungalow to a 4-bedroom house. So I was decorating it. 9 months later, I went back to work at Sony. You know, a year or so later, I had a very early miscarriage. So I was just doing stuff. I also moved from Sony to Smart during these 3 years. I ran half a marathon. Yeah, that's another story. And I found out I was pregnant, but this was my life. This is how I lived my life. And it was normal to us. But looking back, it does make me wonder, you know, was this another sign that I ignored? It possibly was. So 4 months after we had Sean, we moved into this house. I tend to have children and move house. There seems to be a link there. I'm not doing it anymore. No more children, no more houses. And this house was awful. It was, the only way I can describe it, it was a shit pit. I literally walked in, Sean was in her car seat, and I didn't know where to put her because the entire house was disgusting. My mother-in-law, bless her, turned to me and said, what have you done? And I'm like, I don't know, and just burst into tears. So we spent the next 2 years renovating the house. Whilst I was on maternity leave, Sony had a mass redundancy and my role was made redundant. But because I was on maternity back then, they had to find me a role, which they did. And it was the European distribution manager. And I absolutely loved this role. It was probably the best role I ever had, to be totally honest with you. It was just incredible. I had it all. I was living the dream. Okay, I had this now beautiful house in sort of a leafy village on the Hampshire-Berkshire border. I had a job that I loved, a loving husband, 2 beautiful daughters. And, you know, from the outside, I had this perfect life. But there was something missing. There was something wrong, and I didn't know what it was. The only way I could describe it was to say that there was this empty feeling in the pit of my stomach. And whatever I did, I couldn't fill it. So I tried with food, I tried with alcohol, you know, holidays, but there was something wrong and there was something missing, but I didn't know what that was. Alcohol and other medication, legal or illegal, are another red flag. Many people on the cusp of depression actually self-medicate. They try anything to stop them feeling the way that they do. However, it really doesn't help. And, you know, if you know anything about alcohol, you will know that it's a depressant in its own right. But we do it to make us feel better. This was me, you know, I was coming home from work. I was your typical middle-class working mum. In the door, glass of wine. I've had a stressful day. Really nice and relaxed now. Yeah, that wine's great. But a glass of wine ended up being half a bottle, more and more and more. And it's like, you know what? But it helps me unwind. It helps me sleep. Yes, but I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I then couldn't go back to sleep. So actually, and it wasn't good sleep either. but we did it because I was using it as a crutch. So again, if this resonates with you, just please bear that in mind. You know, if your alcohol intake has gone up or you're using it as a crutch, ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this? What's the issue? I was constantly tired. I was running around like a headless chicken. I felt that I was failing at everything. I wasn't a good wife. I wasn't a good mother. I wasn't a good friend. And I was basically, my standards at work were also slipping. I just needed some time out. And it was at this time that I started to daydream. And I started to daydream about crushing my car. Nothing major. I just wanted to crush my car so that my injuries were bad enough that I could have 2 nights in hospital because I needed a break. I'm going to say that again. I was so exhausted that I daydreamed about crushing my car so I could have 2 nights in hospital as a rest. Now, anybody who's looked at the NHS recently knows that if you're spending 2 nights in hospital, there's something major wrong with you. But that's where my head was at. Not once did I think about booking myself into a hotel for 2 nights. That never crossed my mind. My mind went straight to accident, hospital, relaxing, time out, and then I'll feel better. I didn't crash the car. However, I did find myself driving down what I thought was a dual carriageway, and then another car came towards me in the opposite direction. You would have thought that this was the wake-up call that I needed, but it wasn't. I just put it down to being tired and distracted. I then started to have sharp pains in my arms. I actually thought I was having a heart attack. I went to the doctor. He reassured me, no, it's not a heart attack. It's more likely down to stress. Again, I was never asked, are you stressed? Why are you stressed? They took my blood pressure. It was through the roof. So they put me on blood pressure tablets, and I'm still on them today. And I will be on blood pressure tablets for the rest of my life. The juggling got worse. The girls got older. There was more things that I needed to do with them. I had an amazing childminder who was an absolute godsend. We have no family nearby. So when Mark and I were traveling, because, you know, he'd go away and then he'd come back, then I would go away and then I'd go back, you know, we were literally ships in the night, but we both work in the same industry. And there were times where we both had to be at an event together. When the girls were little, they would go back to my parents in Wales. But as they got older and they were at school, I couldn't do that. So, you know, our childminder would have them for us. She'd have them overnight. If I happened to be late leaving a meeting, she would have them, which was brilliant. But that adds to the guilt, the mum guilt. And I was just missing stuff. You know, the diary management was getting worse, the juggling, the organising. I would forget where I needed to be. I'd turn up late. I'd sit in meetings going, I need to be out of here, I need to be out of here. So I wasn't concentrating. And I just really wasn't present anywhere. And again, I went back to the doctor, explained what was going on with headaches and all of this. Yeah, here you go, another pill to help you. I don't really know what broke me. I have no idea what finally broke me. All I know is that I was standing in our kitchen by the back door and I let out this almighty howl. And not only did it scare Mark and the girls because they were there, but it scared me as well because I wasn't sure where this had come from. And the following day I went to the doctor. I told him what had happened, explained some of the stuff that be going on. And he turned to me and he said, you're depressed. And I went, what? I said, no, I can't be depressed because nothing major's happened to me, because that's what I thought depression was. He listed back everything that I told him. He then listed back all of the symptoms on the system. It was a long list. And he suggested tablets and CBT. This is where I cried. I didn't have time in my life for anything else. Now, looking back, this is ridiculous. The doctor was offering me a solution. He was offering me CBT counselling, but I didn't have time in my life to do something that would help me. Again, that's where my head was. I just didn't have time for it. So I took the antidepressants to see if they would help, and they did. They didn't have the effect I thought they may have on me. I was hoping to take these little magic pills and I would be the happiest person in the world, the life and soul of the party. I wasn't. I think you need Prozac for that, but they didn't give me Prozac. Basically, what the antidepressants did for me was they gave me a flat line. So I was probably just existing, but I wasn't doing this. Okay, so it's much better than where I was, this lovely flat line. They also gave me some clarity. So after sort of 6 months of taking antidepressants, they gave me some clarity. And it's at this time I thought, you know what, I don't want to be on these tablets for the rest of my life. I'm going to be on blood pressure tablets the rest of my life. I don't want more. So I decided that I was going to take him up on his offer of CBT. And I did. It was over the phone. I don't know if anybody's done CBT, but when I did it, they give you a form to fill in how you're feeling today. And then you go through that form and then they give you coping strategies, which helps. But the problem is that they help going forward. They don't, again, they didn't look at the cause. It was more, okay, well, these are coping strategies. This is what you need to do. But I was in a better place than I was. I was in this flatline existing place. So yeah, but I wasn't living. And then in 2017, I was made redundant by Sony. And anybody who's been made redundant will tell you that you are given this line. It's not personal. I'm going to tell you right now, it is personal. I was ashamed. I didn't feel I was good enough. I didn't feel that they wanted me. And I gave my heart and soul to this company. I absolutely loved my job. And it was a huge shock when they made me redundant. And I was embarrassed. So I went on a mission. I went on a mission to find a job. So my last day at Sony was the end of July, and my first day at the new company, Smart, was the 5th of September. So I basically had August off, where we went on holidays, and I looked after the kids. Hindsight, I shouldn't have joined Smart. I didn't give myself enough time to digest what happened with Sony. And to be honest, Smart themselves at the time weren't in a good place. They are in a brilliant place now, but back then they had their own issues. So when I joined as the Northwest and UK European sales manager for their corporate products. The team I was managing weren't actually told about me until the Friday before I started on the Monday, and they weren't aware that this position was open. So as you can imagine, I had a team of people that weren't very happy, but it is what it is. And then 3 months after I joined, Smart decided that actually corporate wasn't where they wanted to focus. They wanted to focus solely on education. So we became redundant again. So I was offered a UK account manager role, a role that I would never have applied for. But do you know what? I was there. They were going to pay me a manager's salary. And I thought, you know what? Well, I'll just stay and see what it's like. And I could do the job standing on my head. It was easy. And actually, because I was hitting my numbers, I was also getting a really nice bonus. So it's like, oh, it's brilliant. You know, I can manage my own diary. I'm UK based, no stress, no pressure, lots of money. Brilliant. Yeah, it sounds brilliant, doesn't it? But the problem is I got bored. And I got to the stage that I was totally demotivated. And it's like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I could feel myself. So I looked for a new job. The problem I had is that if I did a UK role, they wanted to pay me less than I was on. To be paid what I was currently on, I needed to go into a European role. And I didn't want to do either of those. So I thought, you know what, just stay on, you know, the money is good enough. The money is good enough. And for a time it was, you know, I asked for more responsibility. I asked for more variety. I basically asked them to use my skill set, but they didn't. And I could just feel this slippery slope getting closer and closer and closer. And because I now recognize the signs, I could do something about it. So I did. And I quit. And I had nowhere else to go. And at this time, I really started to feel like I was just existing again. I was living in Groundhog Day, you know. everything was just the same, and that empty feeling came back. Some of you will know that at this time I started a network marketing business, and I know that network marketing has, you know, a mixed press, but actually I really enjoyed it. But what I enjoyed the most was the business that I was in. They were promoting that we read personal development books. I love reading. I used to read fiction, you know, back to back. And I started reading these books and I'm like, oh my God, this is just amazing. And it's at this point that I realized that I love learning. And these books really, really spoke to me. And there's a quote that changed my life. I've shared this quote this month on social media, but I'm going to share it with you today. You're not a tree. You don't have roots. If you're not happy, move. It was this quote that basically gave me the courage to leave my corporate role. But now what? I was 45 years old. What was I going to do? This is when NLP came into my life. I had no idea what NLP was. Off to Cardiff, I went for 14 days to find out what it's all about. Life-changing is what NLP is. I thought that I was in an okay place. You know, I was no longer working, so that pressure had been removed. The girls were older, a little bit more independent. I was reading and implementing the stuff from personal development books, but there was something missing. And I remember turning to my friend and saying, do you know what? I really want to be the Yvonne I am after 2 glasses of wine, because she is fun, she's confident, she's happy. I want to be her. NLP gave me that Yvonne. I went through 14 days of training, coaching, and therapy. NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, and it's basically reprogramming your brain. It's cleaning the rubbish, it's removing the crap, emptying that metaphorical bin. It's a detox for the mind. When I left my training, I felt light. My shoulders were no longer tight. They weren't halfway up my ears. I felt shiny and I felt new. And I didn't have this hole in my stomach anymore. And I no longer felt that I was existing. I had a purpose. I felt confident. I was motivated and I wanted to help others feel the same. I'd found my passion and my purpose, the reason why I am here. I just needed to go and do it. I was on a mission. 2020, here I come. I'm about to change the world. The world had other ideas. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I knew what I was going to do, and not even COVID was going to stop me do that. Sorry, paper stuck together. I sometimes think that we need to experience the lows to enable us to get to the highs. I wouldn't wish depression on anyone. It's horrible. However, I do wonder, if I hadn't experienced depression, would I be doing what I'm doing today? Would I be able to sympathize and empathize with my clients in the way that I do? I don't think I would. So what are the lessons that I have learned? For some people, a big red flag is that they've stopped doing the things they love doing, like, you know, running, cooking, socializing. This wasn't a red flag for me because I wasn't doing these things. I wasn't doing anything. I'd stopped doing things. That is also a red flag. I was too tired, too busy, and I was too knackered and exhausted to even think about what I wanted to do. You know, I'd go on the 2-week holiday and it would sort of fill my battery a little bit, but it wasn't enough. But it was enough to keep me going till the next one. Self-care is bandied about a lot, you know, and when we talk to people about self-care, it's like, oh, going to the spa, reading a book, having a bath. It is for some people, but for others, it's running that half marathon. It's being creative and crafting. It's writing a book. Self-care is all about what fills your battery, and you need to fill your battery. There's a reason why when we get on a plane, the air hosts say to you, in the event of an emergency, please put your own oxygen mask on before you help others. Why? Because you're no good to anybody dead. And it's the same with self-care and your battery. If your battery isn't full enough, you will be tired. You will be exhausted. You may even end up in depression. And when you're in these states, you can't help anyone else. So actually, let's reframe self-care. It's not indulgent. You need it. Stop feeling guilty about spending time on yourself doing something that you love. We charge our phones more than we charge ourselves. You need to do what makes you happy, because that is something that will refill your battery. I was running on empty, probably for about 12 years, but I had no idea. This was one of the biggest lessons for me. I need to do something for me to recharge my battery on what makes me happy. When I look back, I realized that I allowed my life to control me. I was not in control of my life. And when you're not in control of your life, it just runs away with you. And as soon as that happens, it is like a train. Actually, you sometimes need to pull it back. Okay, so you need to be in control of your life. I wasn't happy. I was putting everyone and everything above me. I wasn't even on the list, and I was pleasing everyone. I was constantly juggling, and I was existing. I didn't know what my passion or purpose was. I was just doing the same thing day in, day out, and it was living in Groundhog Day. Mental health is not just mental. There are physical signs, early warning signs from our body, and actually we ignore or miss them. And don't treat the symptom. Actually find out what the cause is and treat that. Stop putting stuff in the emotional bin. If things come towards you, just deal with it. Even if it's horrible, just deal with it. And for me, unhappiness is the first sign of mental ill health. So what helped me? Antidepressants, they helped me. CBT and personal development books. They all helped me out of depression. But what they got me into was this existing mode, and I wanted more than that. There are so many people out there today who are in this existing mode. But actually, don't we all deserve more? Don't we all deserve to have, to live, to feel alive, not just to exist? So what helped me to live, to be happy, to look forward to the future? NLP, absolute game changer. The NLP toolkit, I use it every day. It's something that, I have these tools, I need to use them. I am a person like everybody else. I have good days, I have bad days. When it's a bad day, I use something. I don't go for pills anymore. I don't need to, because I have the tools at my disposal to help myself. Identify the things that make me happy, the big and the small. Putting myself first for at least 20 minutes a day, and finding what my passion and my purpose was and living my life that way, and finding my sunshine. Now, you may have seen through social media that I am really passionate about this. I believe that humans are like flowers. Flowers need water and sunshine, water to survive and sunshine to thrive. As human beings, we need the same. Our water is things like the roof over our head, money, a job, clothes. I also put family in water. Our sunshine, what makes us thrive, what makes you thrive, that is what makes you happy. That is your passion and your purpose. And actually, to have the best life ever, you need both. You need your water and you need your sunshine. And this is why finding your sunshine is so important to me, because most of us can get the water bit. Very few of us actually find our sunshine. And finally, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I am much happier now than I've ever been. I am living my life with passion and purpose, and I am happy. I have down days, as I've said, but you know what? I recognize them and I do something about it. We all deserve to be happy. And if you're not, please do something about it. Speak to your doctor, read personal development books, come and speak to me. I've got lots of different ways that I can help you, and I really do want to help you. I want you to be the best version of yourself, because why are you here? Why are we on planet Earth if it's not to be the best versions of ourselves, so that then we can inspire others to do the same? I want to help you find your sunshine, because we deserve to be happy. And if you're happy, you can keep depression at bay. Right, I'm going to stop recording now.